What do you feel holds back so many from pursuing their dreams, and what ideas do you have for them to go out and unlock that potential?
So I was always the kid who stared out of the window at school.
Yeah.
I didn't really pay a lot of attention to my studies at school or at university. We would make that distinction in the UK. I think they're almost the same thing here. And I'm still staring out the window, obviously, searching for my answer.
That's so great.
I'm not really paying any attention. So I studied kind of arts. I did philosophy and politics at university. I was never really going to be a politician. I certainly wasn't going to be a philosopher. So I had no vocation to go into, coupled with a not particularly impressive degree in terms of quality. So I really had to become my own boss. You know, I was very ambitious, but I obviously didn't have the chops, from an academic perspective to go out and do that. So I kind of forced myself into. I knew that I wanted things. I wanted to do things, and I wanted to be successful. So I had to kind of make my own fist of it, really. And a lot of my friends, I think, who did study hard, maybe got pushed into a direction that they had less control over. You know, they probably experienced success earlier and got onto the professional ladder of sorts. But it's much harder once you're on someone else's machine to define the pace at which you accelerate on it. It's my own ladder. It's not someone else's ladder. I'm not in some other corporate environment. So I'm lucky in the sense that I can kind of define how hard I work and the output that brings to my professional career in my life. There's a really interesting chapter in Malcolm Gladwell's book about meaningful work, the difference between two migrant communities who came to the US at about the same time, the Mexicans in California and the Jews who became tailors in New York. And the kind of Eastern European Jewish community were able to work very, very hard, and the harder they worked, the more money they could make, the more machines they could buy, the more people they could employ, the harder they could work, the more machines they could buy, the more people they could employ, da-da-da-da. Whereas the Mexicans were working on an hourly basis and couldn't work harder to make more money to support their family and so on and so on. And being an entrepreneur in an economy in the UK, in Europe, and in the US, if you're not working in someone else's system, if you're working in your own system, you can achieve whatever you like, assuming that you have lofty ambitions and a kind of unrelenting work rate, stamina. And I, on the one hand, I felt very jealous of my friends who succeeded very quickly, and I had nothing to say for myself. It was like, yeah, I don't have a job right now, or I'm earning hardly any money. And this was at the same time when I was pitching my idea to them. They said, "Oh, that's a terrible idea. It'll never work." And it's even worse. In the US, it's great because people just sort of say, "Okay, go prove it." In the UK, they say, "It'll never work. Don't bother." It's a very kind of pessimistic. Our sense of humor is based on basically mocking others and putting other people down. But a lot of my friends went on and did that, and they've I wouldn't say they've hit a ceiling, but they definitely haven't had the opportunities that I've had by creating my own path. So I feel very lucky that I was bad at school because it enabled me to define my own course. And it's a real shame that has to happen that way. I don't think I did it when I was at school, and I was probably 16. They do kind of career testing, where you do a bunch of tests. They say, "Oh yeah, you should be a fireman, or you should be a lawyer, or you should be whatever." There's no box that says entrepreneur. It's a real shame. Yeah. No one. I guess you can't teach it, but it's a shame that people like me are kind of almost forced into doing it because our other options don't meet with our ambitions.